Welcome learners. This week we are going to discuss a new topic from block 3, development of tribals. This is a new topic and the last unit in this block, empowerment of tribals. First of all, let us look into the objectives of this unit. After going through the unit, you should be able to understand the concept of empowerment in the context of tribal society, explore the empowerment process of the tribals in India, and also this unit will help the learner to study the disempowerment process of the tribal society. One of the greatest problems facing the world today is the growing number of persons who are excluded from the meaningful participation in economic, social, political and cultural life of their communities. Such societies are neither efficient nor desirable. So, the current national and international concern with social inclusion has emerged in response to the challenges posed by persistent and increasing marginalization, discrimination and exclusion of vulnerable groups in all societies. So, any discussion of social inclusion cannot be separated from a serious consideration of social exclusion. As interrelated and multidimensional processes, inclusion and exclusion describe how people's opportunities for full and meaningful participation in the main spheres of social life may be differentially facilitated or blocked. These processes in turn contribute to unequal prospects that people have to achieve socially and economically valued resources, capacities and credentials. Thus, Simon Well rightly states, someone who does not see a pane of glass does not know that he does not see it. Someone who being placed differently does see it, does not know the other does not see it. The political institution has put much emphasis on participation and empowerment of the disadvantaged groups. The state realized the necessity of empowering these groups by undertaking political reforms, new policies, institutions and strategies that are intended to promote the empowerment and inclusion of disadvantaged groups, especially the tribals, and their capacity to take collective action. Guided by this understanding towards the fulfillment of the commitments, the 9th plan adopted a three-pronged strategies: social empowerment, economic empowerment and social justice to ensure removal of disparities, elimination of exploitation and suppression, and to provide protection to scheduled tribes along with SCs, OBCs and minorities. Now let us try to understand the concept of empowerment. Empowerment is a concept of great significance in the contemporary world, especially keeping in mind the troika of liberalization, privatization and globalization. The era of LPG is based on the skill and capability of individuals, and this process also leads to the marginalization, discrimination, subjugation and exclusion of disadvantaged groups, especially the tribals, because some people mistakenly believe that group identification makes a difference to the capacities, temperament or virtue of group members. This individualist conception of persons and their relation to one another tends to identify discrimination with group identification. This understanding underlines the importance of empowerment in the Indian context. The general understanding of the concept of empowerment is giving power to certain disadvantaged sections of the society such as workers, peasants, women, Dalits, tribes, etc. It is not possible to deal with all these groups in a given space, keeping in mind the real objective of this unit. It deals more specifically with the notion of empowerment in the context of one of the most vulnerable sections of the society, that is the tribes. It has different meanings in different socio-cultural and political contexts. Empowerment can be defined as a multi-dimensional social process that helps people to gain control over their own lives. It is a process that fosters power in people for use in their own lives, their communities, and in their society by acting on issues they define as important. It is the process of enhancing the capacity of individuals and groups to make choices and to transform those choices into desired actions and outcomes. It is the expansion of assets and capabilities of poor people to participate in, negotiate with, control, and hold accountable institutions that affect their lives. Thus, it requires the full participation of people in the formulation, implementation, and evaluation of decisions determining and well-being of their societies. The participation of citizens in the definition of their role in society and in the choices affecting the future of their society is an important objective in itself. Participation addresses the question of how they are empowered and included and the role they play once included. To put differently, it links with the issue of equality, liberty, and fraternity, and at the core of the concept is the idea of power, according to Max Weber, is often related to our ability to make others do what we want, regardless of their own interest and wishes. Empowerment provides enabling environment in the economic, political, and cultural spheres. For instance, the Indian government's country paper for the Copenhagen Summit in the year 1995 talks about empowering the poor to enable them to help themselves and removing social, economic, cultural, and psychological barriers to transform them from being passive recipients of government program to active participants and managers of their own affairs. By highlighting the role of non-governmental, voluntary organizations to provide the support structures needed, the paper also points out the necessity of organizing the disadvantaged sections into informal groups, formal associations, trade unions, cooperatives, etc., for exerting collective pressure, articulating demand, and effectively participating in the decision making process with the ultimate objective of building foundations of individual and collective self reliance. The concept of empowerment is a multi-contextual and multi-dimensional social process. This is due to the recognition that group, community differences cut across individual lives in a multiplicity of ways that can entail privilege and oppression for the same person in different contexts. For instance, in the tribal societies, the educated middle class is a group that is privileged in relation to that tribal group. On the contrary, when we compare their position with other groups, communities, especially higher caste, they suffer different kinds of discrimination, marginalization, and subjugation. The empowerment can be viewed both as a process and product. It is a process because it enables the tribes to control and enjoy some powers by creating conducive environment in economic, political, social, and cultural spheres. It can also be termed as a product because tribes are theoretically empowered to participate, and it depends much on formal institutional arrangements which may be inadequate for them. To put it differently, these two aspects of empowerment are counted to procedural and formal empowerment of tribes in India. The formal empowerment of tribal societies shifts attention away from challenging the existing hierarchical power structure, and then it will be dominated by upper classes and higher castes. So, exploring the relationship between empowerment and the marginalized groups, Singer Roy identified two different contexts. First, the traditional distribution, redistribution, and sharing of power is based on hierarchy. This hierarchical nature of power distribution leads to the emergence of the system which arranges people with a powerful few at the social and economic command, deciding the mainstream of the society polity, and the economy. On the contrary, within the same structure, the vast majority have remained powerless, occupying the bottom of the socio-economic hierarchy and surviving at the periphery of the margin of the social order. Second, the existing unequal distribution of power is legitimized by the economic, normative, institutional, and ideological foundations. To put it differently, this dynamics of discriminatory power distribution legitimizes the subordination of the marginalized groups. In short, the existing power relations help the state to legitimize its control over resources of the tribal society in India. To partially fulfill the objective of this unit, it is essential to look at the social work perspective of the notion of empowerment. This dimension of the concept can be understood in the context of the definition of social work. So, underlying the importance of empowerment, the International Association of Schools of Social Work and the International Federation of Social Workers adopted the definition of social work in July 2001, where it has been stated that the social work profession promotes social change, problem solving in human relationships, and the empowerment and liberation of people to enhance well-being. So, utilizing theories of human behavior and social systems, social work intervenes at the points where people interact with their environments. The principles of human rights and social justice are fundamental to social work. The role of social worker is not to help individuals to adjust or accept problems, but to help them to develop the ability to change the situation and prevent its reoccurrence. So, to put it differently, the goal of social work has always been to give more power to the disadvantaged, the poor, and the rejected. It helps the marginalized groups to develop their skills and ability to deal with the future discrepancies. It always aims to achieve equitable distribution of scarce resources and the establishment of non-exploitative relationship between people. Thus, based on the above analysis, the key features of empowerment can be summarized in the following ways. Empowerment is a dynamic, multidimensional, and democratic process of awareness and capacity building. It intends to transfer of delegation of power and authority. It is not an end but a means by which people, communities, and organizations control over their affairs by realizing full identity and power in all spheres of life. It helps to improve and maximize the quality of life of one of the most vulnerable sections of the society, that is the tribals. It implies a fundamental redistribution of power between different groups. Empowerment believes in people's participation, especially of the deprived sections, in decision making process, and they should have greater control over the circumstances of that influence their lives. Now let us look at the tribals and their empowerment. Looking at the synergy between tribals and empowerment, there are overwhelming factors which directly or indirectly contribute to the empowerment of the vulnerable tribal communities, and they can be discussed under the following heads. The empowerment of tribals have been the major area of exploration, and the Indian state has adopted special provisions and underlined different provisions in various 5-year plans directing towards such objectives. Now let us look at the process of empowerment. Towards fulfilling the commitments of the Indian state to empower the tribals, it has adopted a 3-pronged strategy: social empowerment, economic empowerment, and social justice, to ensure removal of disparities, elimination of exploitation and suppression, and to provide protection to these disadvantaged groups that have been reflected in various legal and statutory provisions of the Indian Constitution. Now let us look at the empowerment of tribals, which happened before independence, that is pre-independence period. The different efforts of the Indian state to empower the tribal communities through different legislations had its foundations in pre-independence period. More or less in pre-independence period, the tribal communities were self-governed by their own political structure. The debut of British in India and bringing tribal dominated areas under their hegemony resulted in strong reaction in different parts of the country. Thus, they adopted policies which were designed to isolate tribals from other general masses as part of their deliberate policy of not developing communication in tribal areas. But they were unable to protect the tribals from the clutches of moneylenders and contractors and from the influence of the missionaries. This provided the platform for the British to revise their policy of isolation and decided to intervene in tribal areas only to maintain law and order and minimize exploitation by taking legal, protective and executive measures. Guided by this understanding, British formulated special administrative arrangements and special programs for the tribal people and for the development of tribal dominated regions. With these objectives, the British Parliament enacted a number of acts and regulations until the commencement of the Constitution of India, and the special provisions are made therein for the administration and development of tribal areas of all parts in India. The important legislation was the Regulation 13 of 1833, which declared Chota Nagpur a non-regulated area, followed by other special laws for the governance of other tribal areas. The common feature of all these laws was a simple and elastic form of judicial and administrative procedure. The Government of India Act 1835 allowed for the formulation of laws for tribal areas under Government of East India Company. The enactment of the Scheduled Districts Act 1874 was the first significant measure to deal with all tribal areas in the country, which declared all tribal areas as scheduled districts. The main objective of the Act is to protect the tribals from the twin dangers of land alienation and indebtedness, with special civil and judicial administration. The Scheduled Districts Act 1874 was repealed when the sections 52A and 52B of the Government of India Act 1919 came into force. The Act designed the tribal areas as backward tract. Section 52A of the Act empowered the Governor General in Council to declare any territory in British India as backward area. This Act also empowered the Governor General with more powers to modify the acts applicable to the backward tracts according to his discretion. Similarly, he was also authorized to issue directions in relation to the acts of the provincial legislatures were concerned. Behura and Panigrahi in the year 2006 explored the different positive measures of the British India, primarily designed to empower the tribal communities. Realizing the backwardness of these areas, the Indian Education Commission of 1882 had made few suggestions in the form of preferential treatment to tribal children through non-payment of school fees and provision of additional grants for schools located in tribal areas. The Government of India Act 1935 went a step further and classified the backward tract as excluded areas and partial excluded areas for smooth administration. The line of distinction between excluded areas and partial excluded areas is that though both areas were excluded from the competence of the provincial and federal legislature, the administration of the excluded areas was vested in the governor acting in his discretion, while the administration of the partially excluded areas was vested in the Council of Ministers, however, to the governor exercising his individual judgment. In other words, the Government of India Act 1935 delegated more power to the Governor General in the sense that without his prior approval through public notification, none of Dominion legislatures would be applicable to these both categories of areas. The Governor General was vested with powers of amending or repealing any existing law that were in operation in those areas if he considers it essential for the sake of administration. In short, the British India had also enacted number of legislative measures for the empowerment of backward communities such as scheduled tribes during the pre-independence period. So to conclude, in this session, we have discussed the concept of empowerment in the context of tribal society and also explored the relationship between empowerment and marginalized groups. We also discussed the key features of empowerment and the factors contributing to the empowerment of the vulnerable tribal communities. And finally, we discussed the empowerment process in pre-independence period. So learners, hope you would have understood the concept of empowerment we have discussed in detail. Hope to meet you in the next session. Thank you.